A business cannot evolve beyond what the CEO can handle.
By 24, 25, we had seen how companies scale and all the drama that creates. When I was 8 or 9, I was in Christmas morning, and I remember we were opening the present, and I see my father coming out of the room dressed in a suit. And I was like, why are you in a suit? My boss called me, there's a problem in Mexico, I need to fly back and I need to go. And I remember I was really sad, I cried with my mom that day, and I told her, hey, why my father had to go and my uncles are here? And he said, well, your uncles are business owners. They could choose their time. And that's when I said, I need to be an entrepreneur.
Hi, David here. On this week's podcast, I'm actually going to give you a breakdown of 2 sessions that I did with my good friend, mentor, Mr. Daniel Marcus. I'll give you the first week, and then the follow-up will be the second week. You're going to love this conversation. Now, just a little bit of background on Daniel. Daniel is the co-founder and CEO of the Growth Institute. He also is a partner with Vern Harnish, the author of Scaling Up, who is also the founder of EO, the Entrepreneur Organization. Daniel and Vern are kind of the epitome of how to grow and scale businesses. But Daniel's going to take you back to his own life and his own entrepreneurial journey, which if you're an entrepreneur like I am, you can relate to this. There's twists and turns, there's ups and downs, there's lessons to be learned. The life of an entrepreneur can be exciting, but it's also challenging. It's not a straight shot. It's not rags to riches straight away. We have to learn things. And what Daniel's going to give you is some insights into what he's learned. He's very, very wise, has a lot of wisdom, but nonetheless, he's made mistakes. He's willing to share those with us. Some of those early mistakes that he made, and he talks about the difference between an employee and an entrepreneur. When is the right time to scale your business, if ever, and how fast should you go, and where are the danger zones, the valley of death. We'll talk about in our next session, next week, the stages of business. We'll get you ready for that in this session today. How will the U.S. economy, with all of the national and global geopolitical, the economic instability and accountability, how will the U.S. move forward from all that we've gone through this last year and all that we see ahead? It's a different time. It's a different decade than we had from 2010 to 2020. We are in a position in life that most of us have never seen before. Maybe we can go back some decades ago and look at similar times of volatility, similar different times in the aspects of inflation, deflation, but nonetheless, we can't rely on the old models. What about America as a superpower? I don't want to get political here, but we've just seen our withdrawal from Afghanistan, not necessarily against withdrawal, but how we did it. Are we conceding ourselves to the world? What kind of additional instability might that occur if the U.S. no longer has the political willpower to police the world? And again, you may be totally glad about that, but realize there's always a trade. Not taking a position that you need to take today, but there's always a trade between what we think is right and what we decide we don't want to do or be responsible for anymore. Daniel's going to go back to 2007, preceding the last great recession, the downturn that we had that started in 2008. Daniel was in the mortgage business. He had a pulse on the market. He actually was shutting down his multi-million-dollar revenue business in 2007 before the rest of the world, before Wall Street even had a hint of what was going on. This is why it's so important for you to be connected to real people in real business sectors in different industries, because you're going to get the news first. When the news finally hits Wall Street, when it finally hits the internet, when it finally makes mainstream media, it's often too late. Daniel saw it coming. He shut it down. He went through a lot of pain, a lot of lessons. He had to go back to start over again. He was in debt $1 million. He'll tell the story, going through the difficulty of a reset. Also, we'll talk about the irrational exuberance of the existing market, where a lot of the funny money, the helicopter money, has been pumped into the economy, and now a lot of businesses, a lot of asset classes are in bubbles right now, and many people are oblivious to the fact that those assets that go up in value, they will come down to a certain extent based on what asset classes they are, where you're invested. The fact that recessions have a typical cleansing effect, weeds out the underbrush from the forest and allows the strong trees to grow bigger, but it has to have that cleansing. We have pushed off this cleansing effect through COVID, and now we're kicking the can further down the road. What's that going to mean for the next correction? I think potentially it means we have a bigger correction. Now, I'm not prognosticating that. I'm saying at least if you're an entrepreneur, you've got to be aware of what could happen and prepare in advance. Be able to get through the margin, be able to get through the contraction. Daniel talks about the fact that it's better to, if you're going to scale or grow a business, to do it in small bite size, maybe growing 10, 15, maybe 20% per year. It's what Jim Collins talks about in his book, Good to Great, the 20-mile march. I'd pick that book up and read at least that chapter. That's what Daniel believes is the right way to go. Those companies that scale big, that are growing massively from one year to the next, are the ones that have typically bigger contractions, because growth sucks cash. It strips away margin. And if you get into a point where the market is going through a downturn, a resizing, a correction, and you've been growing immensely, that could be a trap, a big trap. Figuring out what's your next after reset. What do you do coming out of that if that happens to you or may happen to you? Also, testing your ideas on a small scale before you go all in. And we kind of finished this session on a couple of things. Why many entrepreneurs actually hate their life. They may be making a lot of money right now, may have businesses that would on the outside be highly successful, but what is the entrepreneur's life actually like? What kind of strain and stresses are put on the family and marriages, where security for our family and particularly our spouses is the main thing, and yet we're out there playing the Wild Wild West just because, well, we love the challenge. We love that. But is that good for our family? Again, many things to balance here. I'll let you jump into our discussion and see what you think. I'd love to get your feedback.
This weekend, it's always my pleasure and really an honor for me to have the opportunity to bring people that are part of my circle of influence, and certainly every one of you and everybody who's here is part of that. There's certainly some special people that are like really in my tight inner circle that I have so much respect for because of the wisdom and experience that they share with me and certainly share with many other people. And it's that sharing of the wisdom, the collaborative work that we have the opportunity to do here that we all can leverage, and having these people come that just, they say, yeah, we'll come, David, because we love your group, love your people. And we have another opportunity today, as we had yesterday with Alistair, to have my good friend Daniel Marcus. Let me give you a little bit of history on Daniel, then we'll bring him up. Daniel is the co-founder and CEO of the Growth Institute, the leading online executive education company for C-level executives at fast-growing firms. He's a keynote speaker and CEO coach with a mission to help 1 million entrepreneurs scale their impact and reduce drama in the process. He's a member of YPO and EO. He's a certified coach in the scaling up methodology. He's a graduate of EO's premier CEO program, The Birthing of Giants. He holds a BS in industrial systems engineering from Monterey Tech and an MBA from Babson College. Daniel was an early entrepreneur. He started a t-shirt business at the age of 8, then partnered in a car dealing franchise to provide cleaning services throughout his high school years. Kind of sounds like our friend Alistair, right? I mean, just out of the gate, you know, figuring out how to arbitrage and make money. I mean, this is who we are. It's our DNA, right? In the year 2000, he built an online trading business that was acquired within 6 months by what was Argentina's largest financial player at that time. Daniel's next business launched just before the untimely crash of the financial markets in 2008. His business was shut down, and Daniel took on $1 million in debt. Despite the recent setback, Daniel had an abundance of experience and successes under his belt and had recently been recognized in Expansion Magazine's 30 Under 30. As a serial entrepreneur, Daniel quickly realized that CEOs are often the bottleneck of the company. In the same way that you can't solve a problem without first elevating yourself, your mindset, a business cannot evolve beyond what the CEO can handle. Daniel partnered with Vern Harnish in 2012 to bring executive training to the masses. What was once reserved for a small niche of wealthy companies is now available to all CEOs and their executive firms. In less than a decade, Growth Institute has been recognized among the top 5,000 fastest growing companies in the USA, with over 40,000 members across 64 countries. Would you please give a warm standing Freedom Founders welcome to Mr. Daniel Marcus. We'll go right here. Good to see you,
Thank
sir.
you very much. That was very nice.
Come on in. So you got a little hung up in Mexico.
Yeah, sorry guys, I came late. So interestingly, I became US taxpayer today. So it's kind of my birthday on the good side, on the bad side.
Because I just turned 65 last month and I need all the freebies I can get, so I thank you for paying the taxes in the US so I can continue to get those freebies. I appreciate that.
So I was a taxpayer for 14 years and then left being a taxpayer in the US. But this time I'm entering already in an immigration visa. So supposedly it's going to be for life. So I'm going to be a for life taxpayer in the US.
Well, yeah, exactly. For life, for life.
Someone just told me, I don't know if I congratulate you or give you a blessing.
Yeah, well, we just talked about taxes a minute ago. You got to see what's on the horizon. So welcome to the wonderful world of taxation in the U.S. It's always a progressive movement here. So Daniel, I gave you a little bit of your history a moment ago, but what we all like to do is kind of get behind the scenes. So give us a little bit more of what's inside your DNA, your culture, and certainly mention just very briefly the last Great Recession, which everybody, I don't care where you were, who you are, felt that to some degree. The iterations that everybody had to make to get back on top. You certainly were one of those who your business was doing extremely well back before the crash, and then bam. Whatever you can share with us from some business lessons learned from there, picking back up the pieces, going forward, and maybe a little bit of what that felt like for you and your family, because we all know that whatever the CEO, the head breadwinner is dealing with also reflects back on one's family, and that's not also something we cannot disregard whatsoever.
So let me just a little background before that. I was a young entrepreneur. I did a lot of things when I was a kid. And then when I was in college, I was going to start my next business. And my father didn't want me to start a business because I usually did pretty poor in the business, and I was very distracted from school. So my father called my brother and said, hey, get your brother a job so he doesn't start another business. So my brother got me a job in a brokerage house. So my last 3 years of college, I was also trading in the stock market. So I learned a lot about stocks and how the really world of the big companies move. And that really gave me a big understanding of big corporations. I left high school, when I finished college, my first job was to work in Hong Kong. That's when Hong Kong was going from England to China, 1997, 1998. And I was hired as the Mexican, let's say, liaison between the Mexican government and Chinese government for that transition. So I was sent to Hong Kong for 2 years, and I was in a meeting with Alan Greenspan and all these very big dignitaries because I was taking all the Mexican government dignitaries to work with them. And after that, I was reading all the magazines of all these kids in the US making millions of dollars with the internet. So one day I resigned to my job after like 18 months, called my parents and said, I'm going back. And they say, why, are you sick? And I was like, no, I just resigned, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. And my father was like, no, again. My father was really worried because he thought I was already going to get the working bug. So just as a background, my father has a PhD in economics and has worked for government all his life. So it was a big shock that his son wanted to be an entrepreneur. But here's why it happened. And all of you are entrepreneurs, and you will understand this very well. When I was 8 or 9, I was in Christmas morning in a ranch of an uncle here in Texas, in San Benito, Texas. And I remember we were opening the presents and playing with all the cousins and the things in Christmas Day in the morning. And I see my father coming out of the room dressed in a suit. And I was like, why are you in a suit? I said, well, my boss called me, there's a problem in Mexico, I need to fly back and I need to go. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, it's Christmas. I said, yeah, there's an issue, so we need to go back. So you're going to stay with your mom, I'm going to go back. And I remember I was really sad, I cried with my mom that day, and I told her, hey, why my father had to go and my uncles are here? And he said, well, your uncles are business owners, and they could choose their time. And I was like, what's the difference? That was the first time I realized what it was to be an employee or an entrepreneur. And it was really, really big in my mind. And that's when I said, I need to be an entrepreneur. And that's kind of when everything started. And then I go back to Mexico after Hong Kong. Back in Mexico, there was very few internet companies. Because I knew finance, I opened the first trading company in Mexico. We were the first one to put the stock ticker of the Mexican market online back in 1998. And whenever you had a .com last name, you raise your hand and ask for money, and you get all the money in the world. So we raised like $70 million. Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, Telmex, Carlos Slim, the richest guy in the world, Chase, Microsoft, Intel. We got the best investors we could have. And we ended up merging with this Argentinian company and a Brazilian company. And long story short, in 2 years, We ended up building a company with 1,200 employees, operation in 9 countries. We opened 3 banks, 6 brokerage houses in Latin America, and sold it to Santander, the Spanish biggest bank. The day of the transaction was May, June 2000. Indeed, we signed with Santander 2 days before the peak of the NASDAQ. So you have to imagine, we did pretty well. The day of the transaction, it was worth $705 million, and I was 25, and the guy who acquired me was 24. So it was a little bit crazy story. But at that time, first, we saw a lot of how to scale companies very, very fast and very, very young. Just having a due diligence with JP Morgan, they sent like 10 analysts to my office for 3 months just to dig into every rock. And that's an experience you never live, or very few people live. I lived it when I was 24. So it was pretty rough. Indeed, one of the stories, they put me as CFO in October. In December, he was driving for Christmas. He crashed and he died. So when I was 24, they put me this adult to check on me. And he had an accident and died. And then dealing with the wife and the kids and all these kind of issues. So by 24, 25, we had seen how companies scale and all the drama that creates. My wife, remember, I got married around that age, used to call me and said, "Where are you?" And I was like, "I'm in the office." "It's 5 o'clock in the morning." And I was like, "Come home, come to the office if you want, I'm here." I used to sleep in the office probably 1 or twice a week for 2 or 3 years. It was pretty rough. But we got very early learning experience. And I was in the magazines in Mexico, in the cover and all that, like the Whiz Kid, because I had sold my company first to the Argentinians and then to Santander. And that's when I began getting a lot of calls from entrepreneurs. And that's kind of everything started. And then I got married. My wife had studied in the US, high school and college. And she said, "You know what? I prefer to live in the US. Do you mind we go to the US?" And I was like, I'm a great entrepreneur. I could do it anywhere. So I moved to the US, did my MBA in Babson, and then we started the mortgage company.
Yeah. If you enjoyed watching or learning from this video, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel for more content. If you have a question about any of my content or this specific video, just please leave a comment down below. And as always, stay focused on your freedom. I'll see you next time.